Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Galucki, and welcome to the 384th Imagine Buffalo program, and another great virtual Imagine lecture hosted by our wonderful downtown Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or Cezanne as I pronounce the acronym, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. We're going to start with our speaker shortly, but first a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted during our speaker's presentation, which will last about 15 minutes. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. This program is being recorded. You'll be able to watch it again later on the library's Facebook and the library's YouTube channel pages. As a reminder, we'll be here on Zoom every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. with a great lineup of local speakers. Now, today is the fourth Tuesday of the month, so our Imagine Greater Buffalo theme is nature and science, and our featured speaker is Frisina. Kara is the Communications and Development Manager at the Western New York Land Conservancy. Originally from Olean, New York, her upbringing in the woods besides the Allegheny River cultivated her love for the outdoors. She received her Bachelor of Science in Visual Communications and her Master of Arts in Communication and Development, both from Ohio University. The Western New York Land Conservancy has successfully completed many projects in Western New York, and today we are going to hear about a significant new and large project and why it is important to us in Greater Buffalo. Now let's welcome Kara, who will be talking about the College Lodge Forest in Chautauqua County near Fredonia.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay? Well, thank you to the Buffalo Library, and thank you, Dennis. I don't know where I would be during this pandemic without my library card. So like Dennis said, yeah, I grew up in Olean and spent a lot of time outside. And so the mission of the Land Conservancy to protect our natural spaces that remain in Western New York is really important to me. I have a slideshow, so let me pull that up. And there we go. All right, everyone can see that. So the Western New York Land Conservancy, I'll just give you a brief overview of what the organization is for people that aren't familiar with it. We have been around for almost 30 years. And as a land trust, we work to conserve forests, meadows, streams, and farms in Western New York. Here is a map of some of the projects that we have done. So we have protected over 7,000 acres of forest, farmland, and open space in Western New York on over 90 properties. You might recognize some of the properties we protected that are public nature preserves. On the left, there is the Stella Niagara Preserve in Lewiston. On the right is Mossy Point, which we just fundraised to protect last year. And we closed on the property this spring. It's right in Hunters Creek, along the creek in Wales. And so we also protect farmland. And this ensures that we can have locally grown food and healthy farm soils for future generations. And we do other projects. So that is the old DL&W corridor. And we're converting that to an elevated greenway called the River Line along the Buffalo River. And then we also are doing a project called Restore the Gorge. That's a group of kids that are, we're restoring the gorge for native plant habitat and wildlife there. But I'm talking to you today about the College Lodge Forest. And this is one of the most biodiverse places in Western New York. There are old growth trees, there are rare plants, there's abundant wildlife, but it is threatened. The old growth trees could be logged, but right now we have an opportunity to save it and to protect this forest forever. So I will get into all of those pieces, and I'm going to tell you about how beautiful this forest is, but you can also visit the forest yourself. And I encourage you all to do that. This is where the College Lodge is. Like Dennis said, it's near Fredonia. It's about an hour drive from Buffalo. But there's miles of hiking trails. And honestly, I've spent a lot of time outdoors, and this is one of the most beautiful forests that I have ever been to. And one of the reasons it's so important is it's a window into the past of what this region looked like 400 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, just because it is so rare to have these old growth trees in such an impressive stand of old growth forest. So I don't know if anyone else does this. Maybe we can talk about it in the Q&A, but I sometimes play this game. If I'm in maybe a forest where there's young trees or a mowed field or even a parking lot, I like to imagine like what that place would have looked like before it was altered so drastically, right? It's honestly, it's kind of a sad game because there's so few places left that that are this pristine, right? So I say this just because it's so important to protect these places that are a glimpse into that past, right? With these 450-year-old hemlocks that were here before settlers ever arrived to this country, a pristine beaver pond, there's black bears that live there, and rare plants on the forest floor. And so I just want there to be, I think we all want there to be a place like this so that future generations can see how beautiful Western New York could be and has been. And so here's a little bit about the specifics of what we've recorded in the forest. There are over 500 species of plants. You can read this. I won't go through all of them, but it just shows the incredible diversity of species in this forest. And just a quick history of it, which is super interesting. In the 1930s, a group of college students at Fredonia decided that they were learning about nature. They were inspired by nature and their music and their poetry, but they didn't have a place where they could experience it. And they also saw how amazing this forest was. And so they, during the Great Depression, they raised their own student fees. They hiked the student fees up and they collectively purchased this forest. And so this was a time to just spend outside, to experience the outdoors, outdoor activities. There were, and this looks a little bit rusty, but they had like contra dances there, and it's still a place for that. It's a place for research and inspiration. You know, poets go there to write and young scientists go there to learn and be outside. We have plein air painters there, right? So, but a few years ago, so right now the Fredonia Student Association owns the property. A few years ago, there were high costs of maintaining the lodge and the acres that surrounded it. So there was a plan to log the old growth trees in the forest as a way to get revenue to maintain the property. And so the community stepped in, and fortunately the FSA decided to, that's the Fredonia Student Association, decided to sell the land to the Land Conservancy. And so what the FSA will continue to own the lodge and the 33 acres surrounding it. So this is a map of the College Lodge and the trails that are there. You can see the wetland. And then this little piece in red, that's what the Fredonia Student Association will continue to own. And so with the proceeds of selling the land to the Land Conservancy, they can solve that original problem of maintaining the lodge. And it's really the perfect partnership. We can maintain the forest for the long run, and we can continue to have it open as a publicly accessible nature preserve without disturbing the old growth trees and the really unique forest communities and ecological communities that exist there because of the old growth trees. And so I want to touch about why old growth trees are so special and why this forest is so special. So like I said, there are 400-year-old hemlocks in this forest. And old growth is very unique in Western New York. There are very few old growth forests that remain. Here's another example. And what's also unique, lots of times when we see a forest, we wanna, and there's dead trees, we wanna clean them up, right? But the dead trees are habitats for wildlife, birds and bats nests in the hollows of the logs. Dead trees can be nurse logs, so they can support the next generation of trees. And they also, these dead trees provide a rich fungal community that helps cycle nutrients back into the soil. So that cycle of nutrients helps this really diverse and rich plant community that exists beneath those trees. So you can see pink lady slippers, painted trillium, Canada lily, to name a few. And so remember that list that I showed you all earlier of the 500 plant species that exist at the College Lodge Forest. At least 40 of these species depend on these old growth habitats. And that's just the ones that we know of. I don't know why, is that what pixelated to you there? Yeah, oh, that's a bummer, that's okay. So another reason old growth is so important too is it's what's known as a natural climate solution. So as we're looking to mitigate the effects of climate change, right, we have this problem where we have too much CO2, and there's these great things called plants and trees that take that CO2 and convert it to oxygen. And so old growth trees are really, really good at doing this, and especially old growth forests. So while planting new trees is really great, they do not help pull out as much carbon from the atmosphere as these old growth trees. And so, yeah, there's also a wetland on the property, which is a great feature. There's these meandering streams through the forest. And what's cool about this property, here's another survey of the property here. It's on a continental divide. So that's the continental divide there. And so some of the rain that falls on this property goes to Lake Erie in the Atlantic, and some of it goes to the Mississippi and the Gulf of Mexico, which is really unique. And because of the wetland and the old growth trees and the unique where it is on the continental divide, it provides habitat for a lot of birds, especially migratory birds that need places to nest. So these birds come as far south as the Amazon, from as far north as the North Arctic tundra. And they have few sanctuaries left to come in this area. And so that it's really important that we have this here. Also, doesn't that look really gnarly? That is a freshwater coral, or bryozoa. And this is just something I think it's really neat. It's kind of gross, but it filters the water in the wetland. And it's a sign that there's a really healthy wetland habitat there. And so we have joined with community members. We have something that's called the Friends of the College Lodge Forest. And we are working together to save this forest. And we have to do it by the end of this year. So our goal is $790,000. Sounds like a lot. That's a beech tree leaf from the forest. That's our little thermometer there. And luckily we have almost reached our goal, right? And we have had some generous donors that have given a $200,000 challenge gift. And once we meet that challenge gift by December 31st, we will have enough money to purchase the forest. So we're really in the last leg of this journey, but we have almost $100,000 to raise by the end of the year. So yeah, we need the whole community. You know, once this forest is gone, this is our chance. It's gone, and future generations can't see these old growth trees in these pristine forests that are so rare in Western New York. So that's all I really have. I want to make one other plug. This Thursday, we are having a discussion with a speaker, Joan Maloof, who is the founder of the Old Growth Forest Network. And she wrote a book called Nature's Temples, and she will be talking about why old growth trees are so important. Like Dennis said, I am the communications and development manager. So I am not an ecologist. I have a communications degree. So you can talk to Joan and hear from her about more in depth why these old growth trees are so important, and specifically more information about the College Lodge Forest. So I know we're almost at time here already. Here is, oh, and that looks weird. I'll send out my email, or I can give that to you, Dennis. I don't know why my slides are a little funky here, but you can also contact us at WNYLC.org and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Kara, that was outstanding. Thank you very much. Why don't you say your email out loud, because it is covered on that graphic.
Yeah, sure. It is K Frisina, so my last name, K Frisina at WNYLC.org.
And spell it out, Kate. Spell out your name.
KFRISINA at WNYLC.org.
Well,
oh, and it looks like it's in the chat too, so thank you.
Good. And those are beautiful images. Why don't you mention also for us city dwellers, just allude to that project. How is it going with the High Line comparison that's right downtown Buffalo?
So it's going really well. We have selected a design team who is working with the community to create some options, some designs. We can look at it, W Architecture and Walter Hood. And so that's where we are now with the River Line.
Thank you.
Working on the design and concepts.
That's an ongoing project.
Yep.
And what makes this Forest Lodge, you mentioned it, I want to emphasize it, is that continental divide. My guess is an awful lot of folks in town, in Buffalo, are not aware there is a continental divide, just less than an hour's ride on the throughway to Fredonia, and again, open to the public now. Is this Forest Lodge. The water, we all live in watersheds, and then it's about helping educate literally, I believe strongly, students K through college and the rest of their lives of what the implications of living in a watershed are, because we all live downstream from somebody else's watershed. So that's the educational component that intrigues me. Is there much awareness at Fredonia University itself through their student body that this resource is theirs to be treasured and shared with all of Western New York? What's your sense? Is there awareness in Fredonia itself?
Yeah, there definitely is. A lot of the, like I said, we have the Friends of the College Lodge Forest, and a lot of them are Fredonia faculty. Fredonia students are on the Friends group. And so we've been working with them to really talk about how important this place is, because some of the students don't know about it. And encouraging them to visit, and just letting them know that this amazing resource exists. So we've been trying to put out more information in newsletters, alumni publications, and things like that.
Good, good. Is there, Melissa, I'm not...
Dennis, we have a bunch of questions in the chat.
Good. I wasn't seeing those. Okay, good.
So I'm going to just start from the top. First question, Kate asks, can you please confirm that this is a $1 match for every $1 raised?
Yeah, so this is a challenge gift. So we need to match the challenge gift, basically. So there is a difference, I think, between the dollar for dollar and the challenge gift. This one is someone has given, actually a few donors, $200,000, but we have to match that gift. And as soon as we match it, we will have enough to purchase the florist. And I want to just touch on one thing, that $790,000, that's not just the purchase price of the forest. That would be pretty steep. That also goes into protecting the forest forever, basically, and maintaining trails and things like that.
The next question from Hal is, on the goal slide, can you identify the leaf? He thinks it is an American chestnut.
You know, I'm pretty sure it's a beech. I can double check on that. Our staff ecologist, Priscilla, just did a fall foliage walk at the forest, and she scanned some leaves. And I grabbed one of those to make our thermometer with. I'll let you know. You can email me. I'll double check with Priscilla.
Okay, another question. This one's from Zachary. I have some questions about how Western New York Land Conservancy plans on making the forest accessible to all, and what is their plan for environmental education?
Making it accessible to all. Yeah, this is something that I think the entire environmental field has to think about. And we're actually in strategic planning to kind of figure out what the best way to make forests and our preserves more accessible. Right now, people of color don't often feel safe in forests. It's not always accessible for folks in wheelchairs. So we have to do more work, Zachary, but right now the forest, you can drive there, you can hike on the trails. There's Boy Scouts building bridges and like kind of bog bridges to get over those super muddy paths, and just doing outreach. As far as environmental education, it's a little difficult right now with the pandemic. We've been doing limited hikes at the forest with masks on in groups of less than 10. So as far as that's about all we can do during the pandemic.
And just last question, this one's from Anna. Where can I find more information and or a map of the hiking trails at the College Lodge property?
That is a great question. And on our website, if you go to wnylc.org, you can actually go to, let me send you the link. It's, I'll put it in the chat. You can go to current projects and go to the College Lodge Forest, and we have a trail map and Google directions right on our website. So I will drop that link right now in the chat. And it's, yeah, wnylc.org/College Lodge Forest, but there are dashes in between. So I'll put that in there right now.
Good. Kara, because we physically can't get together, I wonder if that isn't forcing, much like you'll be using a Zoom presentation on Thursday, I wonder if there aren't creative digital ways to link with Fredonia. If you can link with the college itself, then you're into the SUNY system. And in a way of at least proposing creative ways to use land to educate, not just have people walk and experience, but that's a primary use, obviously. But the idea of the importance of watersheds, of sustainability issues, questions that this property might be able to point to, maybe in showing that creativity that would help in the fundraising, because people want to support ideas like that. Corporations to the public, individuals. Does that make sense?
Exactly, yeah, that makes sense. And you know, some other resources that people can find, we do have a YouTube channel as well. And so Eric Danielson, who is on our conservation staff, he has been going out there and making these amazing videos about the different tree species there, things that we can do remotely. And we are getting in touch with some Fredonia students and faculty. So we'll do as much as we can virtually, right? So things like this, things like our talk on Thursday, but also videos on our YouTube channel that people can go watch, and some limited hikes, right? Where we do have a staff ecologist or an expert in the field explaining why. So when we do those hikes, we walk together, but we also look at different aspects of the forest. Sometimes it's, we'll do like a wildflower hike in the spring, or like we did a fall foliage walk in the fall.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful ideas. I'm familiar with the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy, and I know they've creating educational programs with the school system to use preserves as an educational tool. So I'm sure that's digital, because most of the lands don't have walking trails. They're not as fortunate to have as many walking trails as this one property alone provides. So it's a great project. We'll wish you well with it. And we will, time is encouraging us to move on. So thank you for joining us today. Check out the library's YouTube pages and websites to find a link to all our past Imagine Zoom programs. We so appreciate this new format. And Kara, your presentation. Join us next week at the same time, same Zoom link, when we talk to Jane Fisher, professor at Canisius College, and her topic will be African-American soldiers in World War I. I'm Dennis Galucki. Stay safe and have a very nice day.